Oh, they've done it! Simon Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau-Weiß, sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. Welcome to episode 167, post-Review Derby. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me, as always, co-host Jack Mangan. How are we doing, Jack?
Doing all right. Not a Victory Monday podcast. We finally had one of those last week. But I think given how we felt this game had the potential to go, maybe not in terrible spirits, all things considered.
Yeah. Many prognostications were that, at least from the cousins, was that it's going to be an ass whooping, 4-0, 5-0. Not so much, but close, morally. 1-0, the final. Not something you want. You never like losing the derby, right? But it could have been a lot worse considering the statistics and really the performance of the two teams. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean, Dortmund obviously higher up the table at the moment. Us very much not so. We expected this to probably be not the most even affair. We've had some pretty lopsided ones with Dortmund over the past couple of years, prior to relegation and everything. You really do have to go back probably to, that second place season or, whenever kind of around there to find some of our better performances against them. So it's been a while for sure. But I mean, overall for me, I'm just glad to have the derby back. It's nice to be back in the Bundesliga. I personally think that the Revier Derby is a great thing for the league. It's a great advertisement for the Bundesliga. Because not everyone just they're classicer, right? But something that's not Bayern for once, because that's where a lot of the criticism comes from the outside as well, is that just Bayern wins everything. So anyway, I enjoyed having
everything.
I enjoyed having the fixture back. I was happy to just be involved, right? I was just happy to be there. So yeah, a 1-0 loss on the road against Dortmund when they're probably a much more talented team relative to us than they have been the last couple times we faced them. I'll take that. All things considered, we have to be realistic with where we are at the moment. Yeah. I don't want to have a loser's mentality, but when you're playing some of the better teams in the league, it's going to be tough. And I think if you can get through a Revier Derby and just not be embarrassed, and certainly from the scoreline at least we weren't. Yeah. I think you'll take that for the time being.
Yeah, the Union Berlin scoreline was much more embarrassing than the 1-0 to Dortmund. But I mean, obviously losing to Dortmund anytime is embarrassing in itself. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse. And so you take the small victory in that we didn't get our asses whooped. And we looked actually we fought, which is what we wanted to see, right? We said if we weren't going to win the game or draw, we need to show some kind of fight. And though it wasn't pretty at times, the team fought, I think, for the most part. Statistics won't show that. But you can see it. The scoreline was tight. It didn't make it easy for them. Obviously, Marco Reus injured himself, rolling his ankle, and he might be out for the World Cup now. Again, we talked about this. We feel for the guy because he always get injured. But notwithstanding, they still have plenty of talent on their team, and we were able to withhold the barrage for 90 minutes. So small moral victory, I guess. The team fought. Not much to talk about in this game, really. But we talk about the lineups real quick. We went the exact same lineup from the win against Bochum. Thoughts about that? Because we had some conversations about it before the match.
Yeah, I mean, so the main thing is just Brunner unavailable again, right, from injury. So that's why you're seeing Matriciani back-to-back weeks. The fact that we haven't seen Aydin yet, I'm not surprised that we didn't see him then get thrown in for the Revier Derby away from home. We talked about that on the last week's podcast. I think that would have been an unlikely selection for his first appearance of the season. I mean, Vandenberg, unless Kaminsky gets healthy and then suddenly he's the starter again, I think Vandenberg probably does figure to be heavily involved for the rest of the season. So not surprised to see that center back pairing. Oweyan not starting yet. We've had more out there as well. So, I mean, I'm sure Oweyan's kind of still getting back to health to some extent. Yeah. Unless Moore's actually taking that job, but I can't imagine that. Krauser, there's no way he's not starting anyway based on how he's been playing, but then also the fact that he is a Schalke supporter, this is obviously a fixture that he's going to want to be a part of, and he's going to be fired up for, so you have to have him on the pitch. And then for me, the only question mark really is just surprised to see Larson again, because now it seems all this, it's one thing to to get a look at him, give him a start, as opposed to just getting these 15-minute cameos where we can't really maybe judge him as much. But now we've just kind of been rolling him out there consistently, and I find that a little bit suspect. I think if you look at the cameo that Zalazar ultimately did have in this game, suddenly the final 10 minutes of that game were a little bit different in terms of where some of the possession was taking place, where some of the chances were coming.
I think both of our corners came in the last 10 minutes too.
I mean, how many fouls did he draw?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
what, he drew like what?
First,
he drew like multiple yellow cards and probably 4 or 5 fouls. I mean, I could be, it might not be 5 or something like that. It could be like maybe it was like 2 or 3, but like I think he drew at least 2 yellow cards and probably more than 2 fouls in that time. I mean, you talk about a game where one team is sort of dominating possession and we're struggling to string passes together. If you can't complete passes, it's nice to have somebody that can carry the ball and progress it, that way. And then, sometimes draw a foul, stop play, allow people to get into the box and play, you know what I mean? Like there's value to having a player like that. So I don't know. I do not think that Jordan Larson has done anything at all in any of his appearances that would merit him starting over Zalazar. And he's doing that consistently at the moment, which is kind of strange. So interested to see what happens after the international break, as opposed, as far as like, is Zalazar back in the starting lineup now that we've given him a little bit of window? Zalazar is of course going to be, I think, away, right, on international duty with Uruguay, is it? So
yes.
Yeah. So it's not like he's going to be resting over that. I don't know. I find it strange. What are your thoughts on it at the moment?
Yeah, I'm infuriated. I mean, we knew it was going to be difficult, the whole game plan, right? But the whole, I think we talked about the Boca match. The substitutions were well. They worked out perfectly timed. You brought on the Twin Towers, brought on Karaman late. It worked out. This week, I think, was the complete opposite of that, because like the first couple substitutions were Poulter and Karaman for Larson and Tarota, and you're like, okay, I get that. Kral came on for Kraus, which is a head scratcher.
It came out for Bolter, I thought.
Bolter, yeah, which is even worse. It's a 0-0 game, and we have a chance at getting some kind of result, and we bring on a defensive guy for an offensive player. I'm like, whoa, what are we doing? And then we waited till the 80th freaking minute to bring on Salazar, arguably one of our best players, and he does really well in the last 10 minutes. Gets the team going, but 20 minutes too late. 20 minutes too late.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I was talking about whether he should have been starting. If he is going to be a substitute, you would expect him to at least get the 30-minute cameo, right? Exactly, as you're saying, like coming around the 60th minute. The fact that we only had that 10 minutes from at the end, you have to question what's going on there, because once again, like he comes on the pitch and immediately injects life into us. Is winning free kicks, is advancing the ball, is causing problems and opening things up for his teammates, because people are having to collapse on him, and there's a lot of attention being paid to him. And there's utility in that. So, strange.
And he should have really started over Larson. I mean, like you were saying, I think we saw a couple starts for Larson, and if he couldn't really do anything against Bochum, I mean, what are you going to expect him to do against Dortmund? Now, we talked on the live stream about how maybe the only idea was that his pace was going to help change things up. And we saw early on a couple of opportunities where Schalke tried to counter, and Larson, it seemed to work, but he did really nothing in the match again. And again, we waited way too long. The substitutions, Salazar came on way too late, and we look petulant almost.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I mean, like, listen, I think in games like this, sometimes I'm curious as to how much of the way the game goes is just the disparity in quality between the two teams, and how much of that is expectations set by the manager ahead of time.
Right.
It certainly seemed as though the players were mentally prepared to have very little of the ball and have to be chasing it, because they did seem to be, very willing runners. And they did put in a lot of work, I think defensively off the ball. But at the same time, it's like we were very narrow, very compact. We were essentially giving them whatever they wanted down the channels and everything. It's actually a little bit surprising they didn't have like more crosses, I think, than they did. Surprising that Anthony Modeste wasn't more of a target in the first half. He was so uninvolved. Given how many opportunities we were giving them to actually just advance the ball in the final third down those wing channels, you think there would have been maybe more danger created from wide areas. But I mean, we were basically exclusively looking for counterattacking opportunities in this match. Could not string passes together. Weren't trying to, to be brave. We were sitting pretty deep. Not a high line of confrontation for the most part. So yeah, kind of negative football from us, to be honest.
I mean, and it's one thing if you're gonna play counterattacking football, your passing has to be on point. 63% passing is pathetic. I mean, even up against
atrocious.
Bochum, Bochum, we got low 70%. I mean, you can't even get string passes together against Bochum. I mean, something's not working here.
Well, part of the problem, in my opinion, is the depth of target on some of these passes. I mean,
Yes.
for example, you look at Schwalov's passing stats from this game. He had 100% pass completion on his passes under 30 yards, and he had less than 50% pass completion on any of his passes over 30 yards.
And that was a high for him this season. That was a high for the season.
Yeah, it may have been. And I think he had close to 30 of those attempts. So think about the number of times you're just giving the ball away, throughout the match.
Yeah.
Florian Flick, likewise, not amazing passing in this game, but once again, his short and medium range passes, decent numbers. His long range pass is terrible, and suddenly is dropping into horrible percentages. And for whatever reason in this game, so many of our pass attempts were these long, low percentage opportunities that we didn't even need to take some of the time, because there were shorter options available to progress the ball that wouldn't have entirely killed the momentum of a move or a transition moment. So once again, I don't know if that was Cromer just being get the ball up and get it away from our goal. If we lose possession because we're trying home run balls, then so be it. At least it's not in our defensive third, as opposed to maybe trying to do more intricate things in the final third that can lead to, a turnover at the edge of the box or something like that. So maybe that's part of the calculus. I'm not entirely sure, but it definitely seemed like there was, a level of a frequency of these that was just unnecessary. And we were just shooting ourselves in the foot. And we've talked about this theme kind of generally a lot recently. It's not the first time we've seen it just happen to a larger extent in this game.
Yeah, and I think the one small bright spot outside of how close the scoreline was is that I thought Modesta was someone who could have really troubled us, and we seemed to pocket him between Vandenberg and Yoshida. Maybe it's partly his whole family's a Schalke fans, or we did this really good defensive effort. He came out when the guy who came on for him almost injected life into them. I think instead of the crosses that you were talking about, we thought we were going to see Malin and Brandt and Gio Reyna and some of the other guys. They saw how easily they're able to access the wings, especially Matriciani's side, and they kept taking advantage of that. And so instead of going for the cross, I'm going to take you one-on-one, trying to get into the box and get a shorter passing opportunity. So maybe that's why we saw
into the center of the box.
Right,
that kind of
right.
Thing,
yeah. And I thought early on, Matriciani, Vandenberg, and the team did well to read the speed, but eventually it wore him down, and Matriciani consistently got beat. Vandenberg got beat. I mean, the whole team kept getting beat by the pace. And granted, their whole team is fast. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the good news was we had so many people in the box, and we were so, once again, condensed and kind of negative that even when they did beat us off the shoulder, a lot of those cutbacks to the center were cleared away or, hit traffic, or there weren't a lot of clean opportunities for them. I don't actually feel like Dortmund had that many good looks in this match, despite having the clear edge in shots and all those kinds of things. I don't recall there being that many gilded chances for them, but there were certainly no chances for us. But to speak, I mean, did we have a shot in the first half?
No,
I don't think we did.
3-0 game. 3-0
yeah,
game.
I mean, yeah,
that was all post Salazar.
Yeah. I mean, these games aren't always attractive football to watch aesthetically. That's the nature of these derbies, but pretty non-existent football from Schalke in this game overall. Pretty sad.
For a while, it looked like we're going to have our 12th 0-0 game in the derby, which is the most in any derby. But of course, the little guy. That's what infuriates me too, right? Moukoko, who's a good player, really good player. He's one of the smallest guys on the pitch, left alone for a header. Yoshida completely misreads that play, and Moukoko gets a goal. And it was a warning sign. It wasn't the first time. They had done a couple of times to Yoshida, and every time he misread it. We just got lucky in those other ones. And you talked about
is he really that on? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Schwolow made a couple huge saves in the game. One of them point blank, where he was fantastic, but Yoshida was struggling in the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, funny enough, I think arguably two of our best players on the day actually would have been, in my opinion, I think Vandenberg actually played pretty well overall.
Yeah.
And so I would say Vandenberg and Schwolow, which those would be players that haven't done well the last couple of weeks. Once again, Vandenberg's still getting acclimated. We talked about, having
2 weeks ago, they were the worst players, right? So.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think Schwolow did have one weird aerial moment again, but they called a foul on it.
Yes.
So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that, the weird moment was because he was actually fouled, but still get concerned when you see him not being strong in the air. But yeah, I know the save that you're talking about, the one, the headed opportunity kind of back across goal.
Yes.
Very easily could have been, arguably should have been, except for, a great extension. So I have to give him credit where credit's due on that one for sure.
Jude Bellingham was the header on that. Him and Gio Reyna were there, and Bellingham got it. But yeah, 1-0. We lost. I mean, it's a loss in a derby, and it's never good. I guess the only good news for the weekend is that Bayern lost again, or they lost to Augsburg, who, by the way, is our next opponent.
The Fighting Caligiuri is taking down Bayern Munich. You love to see it.
Yeah, big game player.
I didn't watch the game. I don't know how good they were. I know that they've been struggling offensively this season.
Yeah.
So the 1-0 sounds about what they were probably capable of against Bayern. As much as I gotta say, as much as we love Derek Ray, of course, I did feel like he was setting us up for the way we conceded ultimately, because he kept shouting out, the experience and the intelligence of Yoshida, and of course the guy who gets beat, and it's not because of lack of pace, because of his age. It's because of he gets caught ball watching, and it was a mental error, more than a physical one. And it's, of course, Yoshida. So you knew that was coming. Yeah. And of course, not scored by a former player, but Marius Wolf, with the ball in. And then of course Gio Reyna with the initial diagonal to get it into space, and that space available all day because of, once again, how narrow we were in giving them those flanking opportunities. So surprised they didn't utilize that to greater effect, but well taken goal. And Moukoko really good. I have him in a FIFA manager mode. I have to admit, bought an FW player there, but he's I like them. He definitely added something in the game for them for sure when he came on. So
yeah, he did a lot more in his short cameo than Modesta did all game long. It obviously showed that his pace, his movability, definitely disrupted the defense. He often dropped deep and then cut into the middle. Modesta was very stagnant in the game. And speaking of stagnant, our striker, again, not very active in this one. Obviously, he wasn't getting any help, so that's hard to really judge him on this one. But Bulter kept quiet for the most part. One of the guys we thought would have been stepping up. He was into fights a lot, it seemed like. But Bulter really didn't do much. Moore had an okay game. It wasn't like, I think, I agree with you that Vandenberg and Schwoloff are probably two of our best players on the day. All the guys on the outfield were giving away passes.
Yeah, for sure. I guess one of my questions is, didn't we start off the game? Wasn't Bolter on the right and Larson was on the left?
And they switched it up.
Yeah, I don't know how important that is, but like if you've been playing them on the opposite sides of the field consistently, you should have a good reason for switching that up. It felt like, and so that was just kind of weird off the bat too. So Bolter kind of not where he typically is on the opposite shoulder. I don't know. But
I thought maybe it was one of the first few games of the season where Bolter was on the left, Drexler was on the right, and in the game they would switch constantly. They would constantly flipping sides, and I thought maybe that's what they're trying to do or something, trying to throw off the defense, but it didn't work. Whatever they were doing, we know Bolter can play on the right; he can play pretty much anywhere. But Larson hadn't played there all season long yet; hasn't got any opportunities there, so that was kind of weird for me. Though the breakaway he nearly had, though he was offsides, came from the left side. But
anyway, I don't think there was any standout performances from anybody. What I will say is, apart from the guys we already mentioned, I will say that I thought that Flick was decent once again against the ball. I thought positionally he was in the right place at the right time a lot of times. Not that he had the best success in terms of any of his pressing actions, or that he had that many tackles, but had a few interceptions that I thought was just at least organized and very well organized, and was helping clog things up. Kraus, likewise, was very intense. Had a couple moments where he was riling up, the away support and everything. And I still continue to like that central midfield pairing a lot. I just think Flick in this game fell victim to what a lot of other players did, which is attempting these long balls unnecessarily. Terada, I actually here's a question for you. I was thinking about this actually yesterday a little bit. I know it's the Revere Derby. He is your premier striker. We're trying to give him every opportunity possible, and you probably do believe that he is, the best chance that you have of scoring goals, more often than not. But in a game like this, where you can anticipate probably that you're going to spend most of the time chasing shadows and not having the ball and not being in a position where you're going to be able to receive service from wide areas that consistently, that kind of a thing, would you potentially not be better served putting somebody more mobile in that position who can get deeper, do a little bit more defensive work and try to win the ball back? But I mean, but I'm saying, but then
Yeah,
also
I
be
agree.
more effective in transition moments because of pace as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know it's hard to just kind of bench Tirada for your biggest game, but I just think given where once again the disparity in talent is between these teams this season, I was just wondering if you would have considered putting somebody else up there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, what you could have done is maybe put Larson up top, and then brought in Salazar with Bolter and Drexler, right? You got a little bit of pace there. Because I mean, who else are you
There
gonna
you
bring?
go.
Poulter slow, Karaman slow. Lanza's not really an option at that point. So that's what I would do. And then if it's working and get tired out, then you can bring in the big boys, right? But yeah, they're really all the same type of striker for the most part, outside of Bolter and Larson, honestly, up top. So it's difficult.
Yeah, and I know I'm Monday morning quarterbacking with that, but I just
Yeah,
it's one of those things that seems kind of predictable. And I don't know how I'm not saying that like I would generally want Larson on the pitch over Tirada. I wouldn't. I haven't been impressed with Larson, but I just think once again, given what the needs of this game probably what we're going to be and what the game flow is going to be like, it may have made sense to go in a kind of a different direction from a profile standpoint at that position.
In the chat, Med Hunter is saying that everyone in Germany is freaking out because of Kramer substitutions. Yeah, so are we. A lot of unnecessary long balls. Eric, I agree with that. Edwin says almost like Yoshida relaxed when Modesta went out. Yeah, saw a little guy. He's like, oh yeah, no worries. That was a big worry. And then Med Hunter says Flick and Kraus were good. Drexler, Matriciani, not so much. Schalke Canada in the house says, I think it may be time to just bring in Terodde as a sub now that the big game's over. Yep, we were just kind of talking about that. Let's see how it would work against Augsburg, maybe. I would like to see perhaps Larson or Bolter up front more. Yeah, exactly what we were just saying too. So just see how it works. Just see how it works. You don't have to bench him for the whole game, but bring him on late, maybe.
And like the thing with Larson as well is like I haven't been that impressed with his distribution either because he seems a little bit inconsistent in those moments too. So I kind of almost would rather see him on the end of chances rather than in more of those build-up roles because I think he loses possession a lot. So I don't know.
Didn't he have a chance early in the game in front of the goal, somewhat in front of the goal, and he just missed it wide completely? One of the non-shots we had. Maybe
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Last game. I don't know. It's all blurred.
Almost drew a penalty that were a free kick at the edge of the box on the one that he was offside for. So
yes,
I mean, nice effort, but just got to stay inside. Obviously, it'll touch the Bergstallers. So
has as many goals as Bergstaller had for us.
That's also true.
Yeah. So, how many of you had the top four as this? Number 4, Hoffenheim. Number 3, Freiburg. Number 2, Dortmund. Number 1, Union Berlin. Not many people.
This is the season we needed to silence the critics. Union Berlin's got to keep it going for us.
Yeah, all those. Well, 3 of the 4 teams got to keep it going.
And here's the interesting thing, by the way, Dortmund,
who
we have second place right in the table, and what are we at? 14th.
Yeah,
they've scored 1 more goal than we have this season.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, we just have twice as many goals conceded, but like with all the talent that they have and like all the possession they have in that game, like haven't had the end product for whatever reason this year. So I just found that interesting, and maybe that's partially because Modeste isn't producing at the level they thought he was going to, or we're hoping he was going to be the focal point. I know you're going from Holland to a new player, but still.
Yeah, if you take out the Union Berlin game, which is 5 goals extra, you're looking at 2 goal difference between Dortmund and Schalke in terms of goals allowed, and then goals for, like you said, 2 more goals, 1 more goal, 1 goal. So. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we're not that far off. Yeah. It's a very weird season. Statistics, XGs. We saw the one game we had the crazy XGs and we had like no goals or whatever it was. It's been very crazy. Though, by the way, this game, the XG, I think we had 0 or 0.05.
It was like it was like 0.1 XG, which like totally fair. I mean, that's the thing. Is what we're saying. Like, it wasn't. There was nothing in this game. I don't think we had a shot in the first half. Only 3 ultimately. None of them on. I mean, just no offense whatsoever, and it's because we couldn't even launch into these transition moments. We couldn't string together passes, and so often we were bypassing once again those short and medium range options in favor of these sort of hopeful, home run, catch them out kind of things that we just weren't executing those either. It's one thing if you're under pressure and you're attempting balls that are a little bit difficult, but there's some of those actually were open and we just missed people. Yeah. Strange. Maybe that's because they're, a little bit more fatigue because you're chasing people around. So that kind of affects, the accuracy of your passing because everything you're doing is just a little bit sloppier as a result. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, that's definitely been a trend and we need to work on that, the pass completion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if we can at least get that upper 80s or mid 80s, we'll be okay in these situations where we do have the counter. Right? Like, when we play Bayern, we need to have the packing accuracy on point because otherwise you look like we did against Dortmund and look could do nothing offensively. Next few games coming up, we obviously got I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if people know this, but we have a friendly on the 22nd on Thursday, actually, against Guruslo at their home. And then the next Bundesliga game, Sunday, October 2nd, we have an international break for those who don't know. Home against Augsburg. Then we go to Leverkusen the week after, Hoffenheim at home, and then we go to Hoffenheim, the DFB Pokal, and then Hertha Berlin. A lot of those games, well, I will at least say the Augsburg game and definitely Hertha, maybe Leverkusen, considering their form, are games that we have to win at this point. I mean, I know Schroeder's probably
maybe
say,
not Leverkusen because of the squad, but form at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I know Schroeder was saying before this game, the comments before the game was interesting, right? Terzic kind of chirping before the game. They won, so whatever. But Schroeder was saying, like, hey, this is the better team. You know, we just want to look competitive. And I think for the most part we did, you know, scoreline wise. The team did fight, which I wanted to see. But still, Kramer has left us longing for a lot, especially the last game substitutions were terrible. He hasn't seemed to hit the nail on the head for a whole 90 minutes yet. How much longer is he going to have to prove it? He has to get a win here against Augsburg, right?
I mean, I'm not ready to say it's a must-win game for his future. I mean, like, we did finally get the win that we needed against Bochum, and then we, didn't at least lose terribly, right, against Dortmund.
Yeah.
So I think like, honestly, like, in terms of just the results from the past two games, it's kind of close to what you would have expected or kind of hoped for. Is like, get the win that you need against the bad team, and then at least don't embarrass yourselves in the rivalry. And he did that, at the helm. So I it's hard for me to be more critical of him at this moment than I would have been, 2 or 3 weeks ago. But certainly, what is it? 1 win in our first 7 games now. That's what it's been. So we need to pick up a couple more of those. And if suddenly, we get past that DFB Pokal match, without having picked up a win in the Bundesliga, I think the hot seat's going to be back on for him, particularly if we can't get things going on the offensive end.
I mean, go ahead.
No, we have to find a way to get Tirada more involved. We have to feed him. The surface hasn't been there, and I don't know. We look once again a little bit bereft of ideas at times. I think Zalazar needs to make a reappearance into the starting lineup, just for the dynamism that he can provide. Once again, I think he opens up things for his teammates and creates more space for people like Bolter to operate in. And when Bolter can get into those one-on-ones off the shoulder, that does a lot of good for us. So.
And overall, we're not that bad considering how we feel. We're in 14th place right now, but if we beat Augsburg and Werder loses their next game, we're in the top 10. How crazy is that? I mean, this is the kind of season it is so far. It's still early on. Anything can happen. We've gotten some results already. We got 3 draws and a win, so we're not terrible, right? We got some points. We're not Bochum. We're ahead of Wolfsburg. We're ahead of Stuttgart, ahead of Leverkusen, and we're tied with Hertha Berlin and 2 points behind RB Leipzig in Augsburg. So it's not as bad. It feels bad. It feels a lot worse than what we are. And if we can get some results, like you said, stringing some points together, we're going to be okay. We want to be mid-table, or as our friends at SchalkeMerica says, the top of the bottom 3 or bottom 6, right? It's 12, 13 positions. So we're not too far off of that, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, we're not in the relegation zone at the moment, but we're also not terribly far away from that. Not all of our performances have been terrible, but we have had some bad ones, and certainly haven't been, that convincing overall. So, I don't know. It's tough. I think I'm very much kind of in just like a meh kind of moment. I'm not that I'm just not mirroring the team. It's just I don't know how I feel about Kramer overall. I think we're reasonably well organized. So once again, this is how low the barometer is for Schalke fans at times. Is like when you're watching your team play, does it seem like the players know like what they're supposed to be doing and what is being asked of them? I think in the Dortmund game, the answer to that question was yes.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, at least against the ball defensively, like there seemed obviously
difference was a talent, not the tactics necessarily.
For sure. And then offensively, we can talk about whether or not those long balls were a directive of Kramer, and then if so, there's some criticism potentially there. But so it's tough for me to just be like, oh, I think everything's horrible at the moment. But the team is maybe not doing quite as well as I would have hoped given where the talent level is. But as long as we're not getting relegated, once again, that was my only goal. So I can't be overly critical. So
I agree. Williams says Leverkusen will struggle up until they play us and then get a coaching change and get a win. That's our luck, right? Oh, all right. I got not much else to talk about in this game or anything else, unless you got any other talking points.
No, I mean, I typically like the Revere Derby podcast would maybe be one of our longer and bigger featured one. I just think that was not a particularly good game of football. And once again, despite the dominance that Dortmund displayed, I don't think they had that many really amazing chances.
Yeah.
So we clogged things up reasonably well. It was and we got out of there without getting embarrassed. That's what matters. It allows for us to not have too big of like a morale hit or anything. Now we can kind of regroup over the international break, come back. Maybe with some of these injury concerns, and maybe Oweyan's back in the lineup, right? Maybe Kaminsky's available, people like that, and we can go from there against an Augsburg team that hopefully we can at least be competitive with on an offensive level, given what they've done so far this season.
Yeah, if Kaminsky comes back, he's got to start over Vandenberg, right? Or no?
I think once again that could be a game thing. I mean, I think overall, we haven't really seen him enough in the Bundesliga for so far the season for me to have an evaluation of like how he's getting transitioned to this level.
Yeah,
to the extent that we've seen like Bolter right in Toronto. So I think there's a little bit more of a question mark there. I obviously do like Kaminsky and feel like he has a chance, but depending on the game, what the pace needs are, there could be a role for Vandenberg. And I think there's probably going to be a rotation. You're gonna want to rotate Yoshida out of there at some point. He's what I mean, to keep him fresh and keep him. So I think it'll be a committee kind of probably going forward.
I will say this too about Vandenberg. He seems to get in the mix offensively as well. And the 3 games he's played, he's been in the box and the ball's fallen to his feet a couple times. He just got to figure out how to put the ball in the net. So there's that. We had 2 giveaways before the Riviera Derby the whole week here, hooking up with Schalke on some of these giveaways. So the first giveaway, which is the blue Schalke scarf with the blue shirt, it's going to go to the Village Footballer Bundesliga podcast. Shout out to them. That's the winner there. And then for the other giveaway, the prediction scoreline with the black shirt, black hat, it goes to at TWT_ABGJ. It's ABGJ. I don't know. So those are the winners. Congrats to you guys. There'll be more giveaways coming up in the near future. So maybe not during an international break, but in the next couple of coming games, I should say. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for everyone who contributed to that and retweeted and followed and all that stuff. I definitely appreciate that. Med Hunter says Cisse scored an amazing goal in the U23s. Check it out. Oh, okay. Maybe that's an option. Does he play defense though, right? He plays defense, I believe.
Where's City Sane? I thought everyone keeps talking about him. Where's he at? Let's
U23s.
Let's see what's going on. No, I'm just kidding.
Chalanolu as well. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got nothing else unless we're gonna follow response you.
Oh wow, I didn't even think you were transitioning to that. You found me on Twitter at JMMangan, JMMangan on Twitter. 7 for 7.
You still did it. Did you have anything you else want to chat about? We can.
No, like I said, I feel bad. This is going to be a shorter podcast given the fixture, but just not. I don't know, not a good one, and not much to talk about.
It's not a victory Monday, so we don't owe anybody anything.
Correct.
Yeah. So
prayers up for Marco Royce. Have to say it.
Yep. Tough loss for him. Tough for Germany too, possibly. He might be out of the World Cup. Tore some ligaments apparently. So feel for him, Mr. Glass. I can say that because I am Mr. Glass as well. I walk and I get injured. So yeah. Not sure why Flick wasn't nominated for the U21s. Yeah, maybe he's going to the senior squad. I don't know about that, but it'd be nice. It would be nice. All right. You can find me at R_KHARMAN. Shout out to everyone in the chat again. Thank you for guys listening to us tonight. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, like our video, and we much appreciate that though. So Jack, international break. Enjoy the time off. Hopefully I'll be busy. I
can imagine. I can imagine.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you near Augsburg. Tschüss.